We're going to move on now. We have a special guest that came all the way from Athens, Georgia this afternoon. And her name is Peggy Jo Stanley. She's a teacher. About a year and a half ago, I guess, is when I first met her. I was doing workshops over in one of our other training centers up and coming. And I noticed that Peggy Jo was coming to almost every one of them, and sometimes twice. And then she came to the training, and she brought all of her friends from Athens. And they came every Thursday night for 3 modules that are 6 and 7 weeks long. I don't know that Peggy missed a one. I don't know. I think she was there most of the time. But anyway, I've known a lot of people who were desperate for healing. You know, I mean, I used to go to every conference, every healing thing, anything that had healing and deliverance on it, I went to. After I got saved, I said, okay, Lord, I want everything you've got for me. Peggy Jo reminds me of me. So, you know, we just keep going. We keep pressing in until we get healed, till we get to a level where we can say, yes, I can see the world. I can breathe. I can sense you, Lord. I can hear you, Lord. Yes, I can finally pray in tongues. You know, all those things that you want, and you struggle to get it because of the bondage from the past, from the generational curses and all that we've been talking about today. But I would love for Peggy Jo to come up and give her testimony. She's had some ministry, but just recently she went through 15 hours with Rosetta and Sharon. Rosetta and Sharon are so anointed and such powerful ministers. But when Peggy Jo went through that, I'm not going to keep talking. Peggy Jo, you come on up here and you give your own testimony.
And I want to thank Jehovah Rapha, the Lord my healer, for all that he has done for me, for his faithfulness, for never giving up on me, and for loving me in spite of my anger towards him. I thank God for this church, which is so appropriately named Life Center. God has used people in this church to bring life back to me. I thank God for Dorothy and the many workshops that she's held here. And she shared her heart and she shared her life, touching mine. I thank God for the prophetic words spoken over me here, which gave me hope. I thank God for the last weekend, where I had the privilege of going through 15 hours of ministry with Sharon and Rosetta, using these principles being taught here today, which have brought freedom in my life. I love how God orchestrates things in my life, how he directs my path to wholeness. At the New Year Eve service here, God used Sharon to give me a prophetic word where she said, 2011 is the year of the Father. I'm going to father you, Peggy Jo, like you've never been fathered before. Even as the snow that came on Christmas Day, that freshness, that briskness, new life that's going to spring up from the dead. And God used Sharon, who gave me this word, to fulfill it along with Rosetta on March 19th, 2011. I was like the man in Mark 5 who lived among the tombs, death. Tombs are monuments set up to cause a perpetual remembrance. They're soul wounds. Monuments inside my soul that caused me to be perpetually affected by the events that happened years ago. I was living among the tombs. I was living out of the woundedness of my soul. Deep wounds and deep emotions that had been buried in my soul. And out of these woundings, I formed ungodly beliefs. Along with every ungodly belief that I made a promise and a vow. This vow was my shield to try and protect myself from being hurt and wounded again in the same way. Because of the sexual abuse I went through as a child, I had an ungodly belief that if I really needed God, He was not going to be there for me. So I made a vow not to trust anyone, not even God. And this is an example of a big tombstone that I had been living among for many, many years. These tombs were not erected all at once, but hurt by hurt, year by year. Neither has God demolished them all at once. It's been little by little. And it reminds me of this song that I heard by a little kid. Little by little, I'm changing and I'm growing. Little by little, I hope that it's showing. I'm not who I'll be. I'm not who I was. I'm somewhere in the middle. But God is changing me little by little. And last weekend, God dealt with my distortions and my ungodly beliefs of who God the Father is, which resulted from two huge tombstones. My father's death at the age of 10 and the sexual abuse by my stepfather. I didn't like the word father. I couldn't stand Father's Day. I was so angry with God the Father, for my dad's death because He didn't heal him, and for not protecting me, and He allowed me to be sexually abused. I didn't want to live forever because I didn't want to go to heaven to be with God. And the other option was hell, and I didn't want to go there either. And I saw God, the Father, as a perpetrator. And just as God loved that man in Mark 5, and He came and set him free, God loves Peggy Jo. And He came where I was, living among the tombs in my soul. And through His love and mercy, He began to demolish them, one by one, piece by piece. There were many things through the years He's been using to chisel away the tombs. I'd like to share a few of the huge cracks that led to the destruction of a major tomb. I went to a Journey of Healing retreat in Jacksonville, Florida, where God took me to a favorite picture of me sitting on my dad's knee. And then I saw myself sitting on God the Father's knee. And as I was sitting on God the Father's knee, Jesus was standing in front of me with this great big smile on His face. And Jesus said to me, "This is the Father that I want you to know." And then I went to a True Identity seminar where I saw a video clip called The Father's Love Letter. I listened to a CD, and then I went to Dorothy's workshop on the orphan spirit. I went to Hendersonville, North Carolina for 15 hours of RTF ministry, and I got in touch with my anger and my ungodly beliefs about God the Father. I came to Freedom Explosion in November, and I heard about how, according to the Hebraic calendar, that this is the year of the Father. And I got a glimmer of hope that God would heal this long-lasting wound, this huge tomb in my soul. I got a prophetic word from Sharon on New Year's Eve. Little by little, layer by layer, crack by crack, God was preparing me for Demolition Day on March 19th, 2011. On that day, I went back to that little 10-year-old child who had just lost her daddy. And I poured out my feelings. I poured out my complaints. I poured out my broken and wounded heart before the Lord. And as I was sobbing, Jesus came to that hurting 10-year-old child, and he knelt down beside her. He put his loving arm around her, and he told her how sorry he was. I embraced Jesus as I cried, and Jesus took my wounded heart into his hands, and he kissed it. And it began to glow with his glow, his healing light, and his glory. And then Jesus put it, as it was glowing, back into my body. And he came up to me, and he took my left hand, and he put my left hand in God the Father's hand. And then he went around to my right side, and he took my right hand, Jesus did. And together, all three of us walked away from my darkness. These principles that Dorothy's teaching you today, they work. I know because I am living proof. I've experienced it, and I will continue to do so, tombstone by tombstone. No mountain, no valley, no gain, nor loss, we know, could keep us from your love. No sickness, no sadness, no chain is strong enough to keep us from God's love. To keep us from God's love. Our present, our future, our past is in your hands. We're covered by your blood. We're covered by your blood. How high, how wide, no matter where I am, healing is in his hands. How deep, how strong, now by your grace I stand. Healing is in your hands. And to God be the glory. Amen.
So excited when the Lord heals somebody. Rosetta and Sharon took her through the 15 hours last weekend. On Monday morning, I think I sent Peggy Jo an email. I said, how was it? I couldn't wait to hear. And she calls me on Monday morning, and she's in the car, I could tell. As she was telling me, she was laughing and crying at the same time, and so was I. We were so excited. You know, when God's children get set free, it's a good thing. It's a wonderful thing. You know what it is? It's a miracle. It's a miracle of God. And he wants us all to get to that place.